time has come. So you know what that means? It's time for the James Games Christmas special. Merry Christmas! You know what that also means? Standing with the whole tradition every Christmas. It's time to review another Banjo-Kazooie game. Yes, another Banjo-Kazooie. I've reviewed Banjo-Kazooie, I reviewed Banjo-Threeie. Last year I reviewed Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge. So now we're going to take a look at Banjo Pilot. Not much to be said here because to this day I've never played the game, but I've checked out other things on YouTube. I've checked out other reviewers. It's something I don't really do, especially for my own videos, because I like to give my own take. But for the sake of completionist, I thought that I'd round up a little bit of my thoughts, and I played a little bit on emulation, and I've got to say it's alright. It's nothing spectacular. It's a Game Boy Advance racing game. For some reason they're using planes. Like, why are they using planes? It's the biggest mystery of all, really, because they could have used carts, but then again they could have been ripping off Mario Kart. Not that it would be the only game that would do that. Sonic. But anyway, Banjo Pilot, it looked like an complete game. Originally I think it was going to be a Donkey Kong game because a few assets are still there. We have that ostrich from the Donkey Kong Country games, Espresso, yeah, they're in this game for some reason. So there's a few oddities with this game. You've got a few courses that are right from your beloved Banjo games like Gobi's Valley, Spiral Mountain, or the like. And yeah, there's nothing much to write home about. It's sort of like the same story of what you get with Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge. So I'm just going to say, yeah, you really don't need to play this. You're not going to miss out on much. It's a pretty so-so game. But if you're a kid and you're really young and you're really imaginative, because children are like really imaginative, I used to be much like that, then I would say, yeah, it's definitely a good game. And that's it. So we're going to end this review on a dour note. Banjo Pilot, it's missable really. You don't really need it. You're not going to miss much. So that's all of the Banjo-Kazooie games, all reviewed, all done and dusted. Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Threeie, Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge, and now Banjo Pilot. It's been real fun reviewing all these games, it really has. I just want to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. Why are you all looking at me like that? As if to say that I've got one more game to review. I don't have one more game to review. I'm done with the Banjo-Kazooie games. That's it. It's done. It's an almost perfect series, bar the Game Boy Advance games. But take those away, it really wouldn't make a difference. It just maybe a little bit of cash grab. What do you mean there's one more game now? Do I really have to? Alright. The joke's up. It turns out that there is one more game that I need to deal with for the sake of James Games. And yeah, But I really don't want to review this game because this was supposed to be Banjo-Threeie and it's shit. So to put this into context, this game was released 8 years after Banjo-Tooie was on Nintendo 64. At this stage, Microsoft had bought out Rareware, so their properties like Conker and Banjo were now owned by Microsoft, not Nintendo. Therefore, that's the reason why we had this coming out on Xbox 360 only. Back when this got released, everyone was excited to see a brand new Banjo-Kazooie game on next-gen consoles. The game begins with a brief summary of what happened in the first 2 games. No mention of the GBA games, but that's fine. And we get up to date with the Bear and Bird, and they got fat. Like, really fat. They really let themselves go. The first thing that strikes me is that the graphics for me are good. However, I don't like some of the design choices, whether it's the levels or just the whole look of the game. I really don't like how Banjo looks. He looks all blocky and it doesn't feel right. Also, why are his eyes so small? Anyway, Gruntilda's head finally catches up with the duo and she wants another battle. That is until the Lord of Games, also known as Log, shows up. This is when the game gets shit, and you have the tedious task of collecting some things. No idea what they actually are. Where are all the musical notes? Where are all the different eggs? Where are the feathers, the honeycombs? Anything! This is just bullshit, and it makes things even worse. And what makes me really mad is when Log outright tells you, in a nutshell, that no one plays these games anymore. He couldn't be more wrong. And that is when all the fans of this franchise were given the middle finger. We get the introduction of vehicles. Guess what, folks? This is a driving game. Around 80% of this game is you driving around all of the different worlds. And as shit as all this sounds, do you want me to be really honest with you? It isn't as terrible as I remember. Obviously, I preferred the old days, but this isn't too bad. Some of the driving sections in the missions are actually quite good. I say some of them are just lacklustre. Unfortunately, the world themselves, they're not too great. They have great ideas behind them, but they're just executed really poorly. The third world, Banjo Land, is actually my favourite from the game, along with Spiral Mountain, because these worlds feel like they were meant to be explored, either in a vehicle or on foot. It just sucks now, as well, that when you're on foot as well, you no longer have all of the moves which were learned in previous games. Like, what gives? Instead, we have a shitty looking wrench thing, which is a little bit like the Magnesis Rune from Breath of the Wild, but it's shittier. I suppose Banjo did it first though. I feel that the biggest problem with this game is that it lacks an identity. It feels too vanilla. There have been some really good ideas which have been put into this, and while I don't hate the driving parts, I do think that they do hinder the game. Perhaps if more time was spent in designing the levels, maybe it could have been better. Maybe not as good as the first two, but good enough to be remembered for the right reasons instead of the wrong ones. I just don't get the feeling of satisfaction when playing this game, and I don't know why, because on paper I should really love this game. You get to build your own vehicles, which in 2008 was quite an inventive thing. Building things in video games was like unheard of back then. Now it's a common thing, with the main standout obviously being Minecraft. Also, who made Minecraft?
Oh yeah, Microsoft. Coincidental that, I suppose, isn't it? It's a shame that Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts is what it is, because I think the game really did shit all over many fans of the franchise. One of those was me. When I first heard about what they did to Banjo, I was furious, but I still played it. Tiny parts of it I liked, but the end result was indeed a letdown.
To conclude, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, actually, in hindsight, actually is not a bad game, but it's a bad Banjo-Kazooie game. If we didn't have all the cars and all that shite in there, we didn't have such a lame redesign of Banjo, then maybe, just maybe, this will be held in a higher regard. But I think due to abandoning the beloved platforming elements of the first two original games, then this game was always going to be doomed. And I like to think that this is a spin-off. I like to think that Banjo-Threeie still hasn't happened, even though this is technically a sequel. This is like the third main Banjo game, and it's so disappointing, to say the least. But not a terrible game, I've got to admit it. I did have some fun with it. Nowhere near as fun as Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, because those two games are just, perfection, you know? Good Nuts and Bolts. The best thing I can say for it is average. You've got a little bit of exploration in there as well, so it's not all about the racing. Even if the missions are a little bit shit. But anyway, yeah. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts sort of killed the series, really, didn't it? But the fans still kept it alive after all of these years. Nuts and Bolts came out in 2008, around the time of the 10th anniversary of the first game, and it didn't really mark it in a spectacular way, to say the least, did it? And now, over 10 years later, after the release of Nuts and Bolts, fans are still clamouring for a true sequel to Banjo-Tooie. And one of those fans is me. I'm a huge fan of the series. I grew up with Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie on the Nintendo 64 before all this business with Microsoft taking the IP over and everything like that. Those were the good times. And I'm happy to report that people have been listening. Nintendo, Mr. Sakurai, they have listened, because Banjo-Kazooie have made it into Smash Brothers, and they have been redesigned faithfully to match how they looked in the original games. Thank you, God. So I'd like to end this review with a positive note. Banjo-Kazooie lives on, and hopefully one day all the negativity that came from Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts will be erased. We can all learn from this game, and hopefully one day someone out there, whether it be Rare or someone else, we should get another Banjo-Kazooie game. A true sequel to Banjo-Tooie. I hold out hope. The question is, do you? Merry Christmas, everyone, and I wish you all a very peaceful holiday. Thank you for watching. Good night.